pink. You look fabulous.
Well, thank you, darling. Thank you for having me.
I want to welcome the amazing, the wonderful Nicky Dwyer. I will be giving you a bit more of an intro, but as you know, as a podcaster yourself, I'm going to do our cheesy intros that we always do at the beginning to set the scene for everybody who doesn't know you. So there's a certain kind of relationship that doesn't start with chaos. It starts with magic, charm, and intensity. You know all about that.
Oh, yes.
Doing it like rabbits. And then you felt chosen. And then slowly a world of manipulation, gaslighting, confusion, shame, and love bombing happens. But this is not a victim story. This is a comeback story. Ooh. Because this amazing woman in front of me, my dear, dear friend, Nicky Dwyer, did something that many women didn't. She had the chance and she got out. She rebuilt, she learned who she was again, and now she's in a healthy relationship, has 2 beautiful, beautiful children, CEO and co-founder of The Future Beauty, which is one of Ireland's leading brands, and breaking every cycle that she had repeated. So if you, listener, ever doubted yourself, ever felt lost in someone's version of you, or ever wondered why strong women stay, this conversation is for you. And if you're not one of those women, but you watched Dirty John on Netflix,
here's the real life version.
I mean, we amongst our friends call this the Dirty John story.
Yeah.
And we have to give said person a alias name. So we're going to give him Dirty John or DJ throughout.
Yeah, for sure.
So like, I mean, it's crazy when I look at you, and obviously you look amazing. You are amazing. Everything you've achieved. I lived those years with you, and it doesn't, like, those 2 people don't marry for me.
It's been a rebuild. It's been a rebuild and a rebrand.
Yeah.
You know, like it really has.
So kind of go back to the beginning a little bit. So you know when you met Dirty John.
So I think we all know these, like a lot of, like we all have versions of these stories amongst our friends. Yeah. But, you know, most of our pals were getting married in their like late 20s. You know, by early 30s, nearly everyone was married. And I was one of the few that kind of definitely was not and was nowhere near it.
Yeah.
And
I think I was divorced in this.
You were divorced. you were divorced. And then we all know these stories, the panic buys.
Yeah.
So like I fucking delved right into the panic buy with gusto, with pure gusto. And you know, I had that kind of real like, oh God, I'm 32. I think I was 32 or 33 around then. And I was like, God, you know, I'm never going to meet somebody and la la la. But I was like very focused on my career. You know, I was like a lawyer. I was a, you know, junior lawyer at that stage, doing mad hours and all that kind of stuff. I also, by the way, had a back catalogue of awful relationships.
Right.
Like,
okay.
I mean, there was form.
Yeah.
And you know, life keeps throwing the same lessons at you until you learn from them. And you know, I certainly had not learned from them at this point. But I did. You know, this guy came in like literally, you know, blasted into my life, and I was like
sold.
I was sold. It was like this, hook, line, and sinker.
I mean,
reel me in.
As just. Well, when you said that, in my mind, that was the term hook, line, and sinker. I had never seen you so deep.
And like, so I met this guy and he like pursued me. Like he rang the nightclub that he met me in and found out who had booked the area. And like, I mean, he hunted me down.
Wow.
And like, he's like 6'5" and very good looking, very charming and, you know, very charismatic and very intelligent. And I was like, God, like, I mean, you know, and he made me feel like I was chosen. Like I was chosen and I was pursued. And he put me up on this kind of pedestal very early on and was like, you know, you're so amazing, and like he say you're the unicorn, like these kind of women like you don't exist. And I mean,
that's sexy.
Yeah. And I was really like, oh my God, I'm finally seen. And so like I was you know, I was there. I was there for it.
Because when you talk about that, a lot of people go, oh, men like this prey on the weak. I would not have described you as a weak individual.
I don't think that's true, by the way. Men like that don't prey on the weak.
Okay, interesting.
They prey on like these overachieving females who are, you know, give them a problem and they will fucking fix it. And like, here's the biggest
fixed mentality.
Yeah, of course it is. You know, and it's also like you know, we're filling up something that's absent in them, you know. And it's funny, as I've kind of, you know, done a lot of therapy and gone through this whole process, like there's a dynamic that goes involved in these narcissistic, you know, or coercive controlling relationships or abusive relationships. And like there's two ill parties in it. So there's the, you know, the abusive narcissist, and there's also this, you know, codependent person who is like, can't see the wood for the trees, is so consumed with trying to fix the situation and trying to make everything okay. And, you know, so there's two ill people at play.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's hard for me to even understand that even now, but you know, it's taken a lot of time.
And for you, you know, I remember in those days, and it was very intense. In a good way, in the sense of, you know, you were having, I remember like everywhere we would go, you and DJ would have sex. So I'm pretty sure we got kicked out of one restaurant, or you nearly got kicked out of a restaurant.
There was a bit of that. There was definitely a bit of that, girl. Like there was definitely like this huge physical attraction, like a
and
real
that's
chemistry.
Hard to like. It's hard to see.
Yeah, because I mean, it feels like, because it's like a drug, right?
It is,
you know, and you're just like, and you're feeding off it, and you're, you know, and they're feeding this ego in you, you know, that this person that needs to feel seen and wants to feel seen and wants to be loved, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, like I am the chosen one, and they're like so charismatic, and you know, so like I was reeled into this like very quickly, and you know, was very much like, this is it, I'm done. Like finally it's all here, it's all landed. And you know, I was late to the party, but like, look at me, I'm arrived. And like I had the big job, and you know, I just got a big promotion, and I suppose like, you know, for me it felt like everything was kind of coming together all at the same time, and finally all the pieces of the jigsaw were kind of coming together. I was like, you know, a corporate lawyer, I was making good money, you know, like living my best life. And I was like, oh, this is great, you know,
and
finally.
So you're living your best life, you guys are having the best time. Before we talk about when the cracks started to appear, or the manipulation.
I'd say day one.
Day one. Well, and this actually, I suppose, links to my question. Were you the only one who couldn't see it at the beginning, or did he suck everyone else in too? Family, friends?
Well, I think initially people were just like, "Oh, Nicky's so happy," and like we're so happy for her, because like I said, I had a catalogue of shit relationships, you know. So, I mean, people were like, "Oh, you know, she's finally found somebody," and la la la. And I was very keen to like get married and have kids, and you know, kids was like high on my agenda, even in my early 30s, and which I mean leads into the panic buy, right? Because you're in this like biological clock where you're like, "Fuck, I need to have a child. Where is my suitor?" And so I mean that definitely kind of fed into it. But I mean, so initially I think people were happy for me, and I was so happy, and you know, everyone was, and also he was so charming. So like there was definitely a few people who saw right through it very, very early on.
Yeah, I was very happy for you. I was. I'm not going to say I saw through it, but you know when you just get this feeling. And I just always had this weird gut feeling. And you know, DJ was an odd character sometimes.
Oh yeah, totally. And like and do you know what the interesting thing about, like, you know, when I think back on this, and you know, I've done a lot of you know, raking over the coals and trying to understand it and whatever else. And actually, like, the problem with being intelligent is actually you can intellectualize and rationalize a lot of behavior.
Yeah.
And like often, you know, I wonder, you know, if I hadn't the capacity to kind of understand things from multiple points of view, and also my career as a lawyer was like trying to understand things from multiple points of view, why people are motivated to do one thing over the other, you know, how do people arrive at a situation, what's people's interpretation of events, you know, and like
you're rationalizing everything.
Yeah, and like I mean,
maybe
like
making excuses, possibly.
Oh my God, not making excuses like to the cows come home. So for me, like it's interesting how like you intellectualize an emotional process. But for me, like the thing to understand about these relationships, like these coercive, controlling relationships, abusive relationships, narcissistic relationships, whatever, you know, because there is a spectrum, and like the spectrum is huge. But wherever you are sitting on the spectrum, the thing is that you don't wake up one night and you're like, you know, in an abusive relationship. You wake up and like it's a slow erosion.
Is it a slow erosion? Slow
erosion, little things as they get to know you, they pick on your vulnerabilities and, you know, and unravel them. And you know, and the other thing about narcissists is whatever they say, there's a kernel of truth in it.
Right.
So, you know, like I guarantee you, who met him today and you said to him, you know, what do you think happened between you and Nicky? He'd be like, oh, you know, I really loved her, but it didn't just work. It just didn't work out. We couldn't make it work. It would be his story.
Right.
Which is true, right? There's truth in that.
Yeah.
But like 98% of the rest of the story has been abandoned. So like that is how he operated all the time. So when we'd have arguments or fights about things, because like I fucking fight back, you know, I'm not, you know, a total wallflower. But we'd have arguments, and he's very, very articulate person, very manipulative, and I've just been gaslit all the time. And you know when there's a kernel of truth in something, and then you're like,
Is it me?
is it me? Like, you know, and it would always be something that I'd be vulnerable about, you know. So, like the weight thing was a big thing for me, you know. So I think I had said to him very early on, I'd said, you know, I've always kind of struggled a bit with my self-image, about my weight. I'm up and down over the years. I'm always trying to lose 10 pounds, 2 stone, you know, I mean, like most females, you know. And so that was a kind of, you know, something that I had opened up to very early on. And I remember the week we moved in together, he was like, do you know, I think we should go on a juice diet. And I was like, really? Like, we're literally like, this is our first night in. He was like, yeah, let's start as we mean to continue. And like, so it was like the first day we lived together, we were on a juice diet. And like, this was like, let's not eat for 10 days and just drink juice. And there was loads of small things, small parts of control, you know.
And I mean, maybe you're going to get to this, but the underlying thing that I suppose people won't know is, was it from the beginning where he had pitched to you that he was this very successful guy?
Oh,
he'd sold
100%.
this business, but you were actually funding most.
Oh, like
was that from the beginning?
No.
Right, okay.
So very early on, like he showed up at my door with this fancy Range Rover and a big fancy watch, and you know, it's all very slick. And I was like, "What do you do for a living?" He was like, "Oh, you know," he was very vague about everything, and I was like, you know. So like, how do you live? And he lived in this lovely, you know, penthouse apartment. And anyhow, like the story unravelled, and he was like, oh, you know, I sold my business and I made a lot of money, and you know, so now I don't really work. I just trade a bit of my cash and this kind of thing. And I was like, oh, you know, so again, like I've just met this dream man.
I mean,
so I'm like,
why wouldn't you believe it?
but also you're like, fucking ching ching. Not only is he hot, like he's also smart and accomplished and has got a few quid. Like, so I mean, like, tell me a woman who's not excited by that. Anyhow, so I was like, oh, grand. And then we moved in together, and you know, I can't remember what happened, but the lease came up in his apartment, and he was like, we need to move somewhere else, and that was the end of it. And there's a scene in Dirty John, if you remember that Netflix documentary, where Eric Bana brings, I can't remember what her name is now, he brings her out to this, like, you know, amazing house. And literally that happened in my actual life, right? In my real life, that happened. So he says to me one day, he goes, I found the perfect place for us. And I was like, okay, grand, yeah, let's go. And so he brings me down to this like seafront place down in Killiney, right, or Dalkey or whatever, like right overlooking the sea. You could like put a fishing rod. You were in that place.
Yeah, it was amazing.
Absolutely
amazing.
off the charts.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, this place is amazing. And he was like, but like, we can afford it. And I was like, really? Can we? You know, and at the time, like I was, you know, I mean, I was at the early start of my career. I was making good money, but it wasn't like making whopper cash or anything. And he was like, yeah, of course, like you and me will split the bills. We'll do everything halfsies. And I was there like, oh, okay, well, if we can do that, then yeah. And so for me, like, again, like it felt like this piece of the jigsaw had like, you know, kind of come together, and I was like, all my hard work was finally starting to pay off. And like I said, because I was studying and I was, you know, doing that kind of early slog at my career, a lot of my friends had, you know, gone through that boom time and had bought their houses and doing all. And so I was like, you know, on the back foot a little bit, and thought, oh, well, like now it's all coming together, and I've got the man, and now I've got the house, and, you know, and then there was a few other kind of bits that all kind of came together at the same time.
So when you moved in together, did it continue to be a slow erosion, or was it then he had you living in the house? Was it like bam?
No, there was a slow erosion. We definitely, like, there was, you know, we definitely fought, and it was volatile, and how he would fight would be very manipulative, and it would be, you know, his version of the truth and his version of events, and he would very much gaslight me and make me feel. That's really frustrating.
It's really frustrating. And I'd be
like,
that happens.
I'd be like, what, you know, and he'd pick at, you know, facets of my personality, you know. And then the other thing was, he used to always say to me like things like, you know, I can't tell you anything. I can't teach you anything. And like, there is definitely an element of truth that I don't like being told what to do. You know, I'm very accomplished, but I'm accomplished off my own bat, on my own time, and on my and on my own will. And if anyone's kind of ever tried to like coerce me into doing something, ironically, I kind of, you know, fight back a bit. Yeah. And so I used to say, well, like, I mean, there's truth in that. So like, you know, maybe I need to learn a bit, maybe I need to soften a bit, and this is what it's all about, being part of a partnership. Anyhow, fast forward, like lots of things happened over the course of maybe a year. And anyhow, I came home one day and everything was gone. Literally came down the road, came into the apartment and was like, where the fuck is everything? Like, everything was gone. And like the sheets were taken off the bed, right? And I was like, we've been robbed. Like, we've been robbed.
You're ringing him, texting, we've been robbed.
And like, there was a letter on the kitchen table saying, I'm sorry, I can't do this, you know, la la la, and, you know, I've taken all my things or whatever, and, you know, I'll talk to you in a few days when the dust is settled. And I was like,
I've taken all my things as well as your bedclothes. Like,
I was actually the most annoyed about the beds, the sheets, like, take the sheets off the bed. An Egyptian cotton sheets as well.
Did that completely
I literally felt...
pull you over? Had you had a fight the night before?
We've had a load of fights. Things have been kind of tumultuous.
Right.
But the thing in the dynamic of these relationships is that, like, when things are bad, they're so bad.
Right.
And then he would always know when he'd push things too far, and then he would love bomb me and reel me back in. And then he'd be like, oh, it's just because of this or just because of that or whatever. And at this stage, things weren't really bad, but there was definitely a lot of signs.
Do you think that's the true sign of a real narcissist? Because, like, say, gaslighting is a big word right now that everyone's using.
I think everyone gaslights
I would fight
people.
with my partner and I'm like, you're gaslighting me.
Oh, yeah.
Because his version is, it's like I'm speaking a different language.
Oh, yeah.
He's taking parts of what I'm saying and twisting the context.
I think we all do it.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
We all do
So
it.
he says, oh yeah, go on with the trendy gaslighting. And I'm like,
yeah.
gaslighting is just another word for manipulation, right?
Yeah.
Which, as you said, we all do. So where is the line from normal, what happens in relationships, to being a full-blown narcissist?
I think it's when
and it's toxic.
Like, it's one thing, like, I definitely think, you know, I always remember actually sitting, this is like a total segue now, but I remember me and the other 5 members of my family sat in a room with an oncologist who was telling us about the outcome of our mother, right, who was dying at the time. And, you know, we were with them for like 5 minutes, and then we all walked outside the door, and every single one of us had a completely different interpretation of the exact same event. And like, I was like, oh right, like she'd be dead in a few days. My dad was like, oh, this could go on for months. And
right,
you know, it was just,
yeah.
So we all, you know, colour stories, you know, according to our own narrative, and you know, I think that's just psychology. And I think there's a difference between that and being, like, I mean, told that how you feel about something is invalid. And I think that's the difference between, you know, people having a different narrative versus being gaslit. So me telling you that your feelings are invalid, or that you don't have the right to be angry, or you don't have the right to be upset, or that you are less than, I think that's when the kind of gaslighting, you know, it's...
And I remember a story, and forgive me if you're not okay with me telling the story, where...
But you're telling it anyhow.
I'm telling it. Oh, we can cut it. Where he had a conversation with your sister and basically was calling you fat.
Oh, yeah.
And unattractive.
Oh, yeah.
And saying some absolutely horrendous... And in my mind, I was like, on what planet did he think that was and he was saying it like he had a valid reason, and that was the turning point for me, where I was like, you're a psycho. So sorry, he laughed.
He would always think that he was right. So no matter what his point of view was, whether it was right or wrong, he'd be like, but that's how I feel about you, so that's
fact.
Well, it's fact to him. So to him, he was like, I don't like the way you look right now. Whether I was skinny or fat or whatever, it was really irrelevant. He was like, I don't like this. And that's how I'd be like, and I remember having a conversation with like a male friend of mine, and he was like, you know, he's like, look, he goes, you know, this happens in marriage, you know, women getting a little bit like whatever and this, that and the other. And I was like, oh, so like this is just actually reality. And he goes, and he's just being honest about it. So that was my take on it.
Yeah.
And then like my lad friend was like, he was like, listen, do you think, like, you know, he's the first person to say that he doesn't find his wife attractive after a number of years, you know, because she's put on a bit of weight or whatever. And like, I mean, at the time Khloe Kardashian's revenge bod had come out, and like, I mean, there's a whole industry built on revenge bods and oh, you let yourself go when you're in a relationship and now you have the comeback. So I mean, like, this narrative is like not new in our society, and like, women are fed this narrative that our value, and you know, and I believe this, and I fully understand that part of the reason I ended up in a relationship like this is because I felt that, you know, my value had a lot to do with how I looked.
So you were feeding the beast.
100%. We all do.
So was
there's a beauty industry that feeds the beast, you know?
Yeah, it was so true. So was that the breaking point?
No.
When he left? And do you think he left because he had enough? Or was that a power play?
Oh, this was a power play. Like, so he left. I was absolutely devastated because I was blindsided
Right.
and I couldn't understand what the fuck had gone on. And I was like, how the hell has this just happened? And anyhow, fast forward, and I was like, you know, he sent me some message going, you know, a couple of weeks, like, can I pick up some things? And
Are you
la, la,
begging
la,
for
la.
him back in
No,
between this
no.
point?
I
Okay.
definitely had a bit of pride, a bit, not much, a little bit of pride. But I was, you know, I was like, I was very confused. I didn't understand what had happened.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't like we'd had a fight and he just moved out. He was just
Yeah.
like, I can't do this anymore. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, anyhow, he came over to pick up his stuff or whatever, and he was like, you know, to be honest with you, I couldn't do it anymore. You know, I lost a lot of money on the stock market. This was the story.
Mm-hmm.
I'm broke with no cash. I can't afford to live like this, la, 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 la. And I was like, I mean, what? And I just had a massive promotion at this
Right.
point. And I was like in this big job, big money, whatever. And I was like, sorry, so the reason why we're not together is because of money. And I was like, do you love me? And he was like, of course I love you. And I was like, okay, so you love me and I love you. And the reason we're not together is because you can't afford rent. Like, that's a bananas reason for us to be together, which obviously like played into the hand so beautifully. So beautifully.
So we all would like.
Yeah.
He knew exactly what.
So
he was
I
doing.
was like, sure, I can, like, you know.
I'll pay for everything.
He decided to go back to college at this point. So,
Right.
you know, so he was a couple of months into going back to college, and he was like, look, I'm thinking about dropping out, and I'm thinking about, like, I'm going to have to go and get a job. I'm going to have to do this, that, and the other. And I was like, but you always wanted to go back to college. This is what you want for your future. Like, you want to be with me. Why is money the stumbling block? It shouldn't be the stumbling block. And I was like, well, if we're in this together for the long haul, then, I mean, it's peaks and troughs. Like, things swing on roundabouts. I got your back now. A few years' time, you get my back. Like, at some point in the future, I want to go on maternity leave and not work for a while. So to me, it was just like, you know, what people do in a couple. So I was like, no problem. Like, I'll pick up the tab.
So what? Did the world just start caving in very quickly from then on?
No, like, this was like, that was like 2 years in. It was another like 5 years before this all went tits up. Like, so all in were like 6 or 7 years.
Right.
And so I picked up the tab. We started, you know, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, fast forward, like, definitely serious cracks at that point. And the money thing became a big problem. And again, like, the kind of story was that the narrative was, you know, we'd have these huge fights and then he'd kind of love bomb me afterwards. And the conversation would always be like, oh, you know, I feel emasculated by the fact that I don't have money and I can't give you what you want and la, la, la.
Right.
And then I would feel sorry for him. And then I would kind of pull back and be like, okay, well, you know, I understand why we are where we're at. And it also gave me enough of a carrot to look to the future going, well, as soon as he's finished with college and he's making money again, this won't be a problem.
Was that the promise from him? Like,
Yeah.
when you finish college, you'd get engaged, you'd get married, you'd have kids?
Yeah, of course. So I was like, I was in this for the long haul, and I kind of just thought, and it is actually, like I said previously, like, if things had worked out, this would just be part of, you know, a normal story of couples where, you know, somebody carries the can for a while and the other person, you know, takes up the slack. And that kind of happens in a relationship or whatever. But that was never going to be the way this is going to pan out. And so anyway, fast forward a number of years and my mum was dying and, you know, it was a really, you know, pivotal kind of time in my life. And I had kind of said to him, I was like, you know, where are we going and what's going on? And I mean, we were kind of 3 or 4 years in at this stage. I was paying for everything and it wasn't a cheap life. And we were like, you know, boats and Range Rovers and ski trips and like fancy fucking gaffs. And anyhow, so I was like, you know, what are we doing here? And he was like, well, I'm finished college, blah, blah. And I was like, you know, and then
Well,
he comes
when
home.
are you finished?
Yeah, and then he comes home and he goes, well, look, I have the opportunity to go to Australia now. So I was like, and it was one of the few times in the relationship where I was like, Grant, okay, listen,
As
do you know
part
what?
of
As part of college, he was
okay,
like, I can
right.
go off for 6 months and I can do
Right.
this like Erasmus thing. And I was like, okay, Grant. So I was like, okay, well, look, see you later. I'm not going to be here when you come back. So he was like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
And I was like, listen, like, if you're swanning off and you're suiting your own agenda, then all you are to me is a very expensive flatmate. There's no commitment for you. There's no anything. I'm not going to finance this and finance
He was
you.
asking you to finance Australia.
I mean, not indirectly. Like, he was... There was
The
no
way a
other- there was no
narcissist
other-
does.
There was no other way he was
Yeah.
going to be able to do it. Like, where
Yeah.
was he going to, like, pull the cash out
Yeah.
of it? Like, you know.
Yeah.
So anyway, short story is, he, like, at the 11th hour, pulled it out of the bag, produced the ring, and it was like, you know, a Netflix documentary. Like, it was an engagement in Morocco on a camel with a big diamond, and I was like, oh, finally, it's all happened. But even like in the run up to it, I was like, you know, like I said, my mum was dying, and I was like, you know, if we're going to get engaged, can we get engaged while my mum's still alive? And he blew up, was like, I'm not going to be dictated to by anybody, you know, that, you know, this kind of thing. And then I'd be like, okay, well, like, that's fair enough, you know, he shouldn't be.
Yeah.
But actually, like, somebody who cares about you and wants to be part of your life, you know, would want you to have that experience with your mother while she's still alive.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like, again, you know, in hindsight, but at the time you're like, okay, well, I get it. Like, you shouldn't be kind of whatever.
And for the purpose of the podcast, because obviously we're on a time, it wasn't just the way you're saying. You're like, oh, there was bits, and I mean, it was emotionally abusive relationship.
Oh, totally.
I mean, it wasn't,
abusive,
or was physical, or
never physical. Although, do you know what? Like, there was a few times I was scared of him. You know,
Yeah. But I mean, he was an awful to you. He was awful. To you.
Awful.
And I just really do want to highlight that to listeners. 'cause
fucking
I lived
awful.
it,
Yeah. And there was loads of things, and like my poor friends, like you, and you know, there was a couple of other people who I'd ring, and I'd be like, and then this happened, and then I'd try to rationalise it and justify it, and I'd be like, and why do you think he behaved like that? And you know, did I do something wrong? And la la la. And it was just, you know,
You didn't want to see it back then. You
just
didn't.
couldn't.
You
I just
couldn't, yeah.
couldn't, because right, he would be so awful, right, and then he would withdraw, and like, you know. And then I would feel utter panic because I wouldn't know what was going on.
Yeah.
And
then
then
the
I
love
would
bombing.
And then I would eventually try and fix it. So I
Yeah.
would then try and fix, you know, the carnage that he had created.
Yeah.
And then eventually I would get so desperate to make the pain of it stop that, you know, we would, you know, glaze things over. And then he would love bomb me because he'd know when he'd push things too far, and then he'd love bomb me. And then it would be like, and then he'd be amazing. And then he'd be the best partner ever. And I'd be like, oh, this is what it's all about. And he's just having a tough time. And
Oh, I'm sure there's so many people that can relate to
I
this.
think back and I just would kick myself.
So you got engaged.
Get engaged.
Did he go to Australia?
Went off to Australia. That was all grand. And then it was like the 1 foot in, 1 foot out bullshit continued while he was in Australia. And then at one stage, so I had a hen party, you know, was like due to go over to Australia to meet him at the end of his 6-month kind of stint there. Bought a wedding dress, and he like brings me up one day. He's like, I've got cold feet. I don't think we should get married. And I was like, what? And I was like, oh, convenient that. Anyway, I didn't think like that at the time.
Yeah.
At that time, I was like, panic again. So I never had kind of any sure footing. And so, and also at this stage, I was humiliated, like embarrassed, and couldn't tell people, because obviously, you know, when you're in a bad relationship as well and you overshare with people, then people get over, like, don't get over those fights. You get over it within your relationship, but other people don't.
I was going to ask you what the overriding feeling was to stay, and obviously you talk about panic, but I remember you referencing this feeling of shame and embarrassment.
Oh,
and we
totally.
were like, why would you be embarrassed? We're your friends. Like, we would never judge you. But it's not about us judging you. It's kind of probably judging
It's about
yourself
your own
in a
shame,
way.
yeah. And it's about you being so like,
You're like, I've come this far, I can't go back now.
yeah, and like, I mean, it was kind of this weird thing. And anyway, so he was like, oh, I think we should cut it off, and he's like, but you should still come to Australia, and we'll go travel, and we'll have whatever. And I was like, sorry, do you think I am going to get on a plane and fly halfway across the world to audition for the role of your potential future wife again? Or the potential demotion back to girlfriend with a wedding dress in my bag? I was like, have you lost your fucking mind? And I was like, listen, it's done. See you later. La la. And then again, right? So I was like, clean, done. I'm out. And I couldn't say anything to anybody because I was just like, so is he just having a wobble? Like, what the fuck is going on?
You probably didn't want to believe it because you want to believe this version that he sold you.
Of course you do. Of course you want to believe it. And like, you know, and there is kernels of truth in all of it, right? So then, like, you know, this bunch of flowers arrives with the video, and he's like standing in front of the fucking opera house in Sydney, and it's like a fucking, like, I mean,
You couldn't write
You
it. Actually,
literally couldn't
I
write it.
remember that it is like watching a TV show.
It's like, what and I was really like, oh God.
He loves
He
me.
loves me. And it was all like, I'm sorry, please come and, be my
Forgive
wife again.
me.
And I just had a bit of a wobble. It's because we haven't seen each other in so long and I'm a bit scared and I'm just a man. I'm just a man standing in front of a girl. This kind of crack. And you're just like, and you want it. Like, you want it, so you like buy in.
Yeah.
And then, so off I go to Australia, get married, everything's fucking wonderful. It's just about us. He organised everything, by the way. He organised the whole wedding. And I'm a lawyer and I left over that control, which is very unusual as well. And I organised everything. We got married in tiny islands in the middle of the Pacific, just the two of us.
And that was the other thing.
To the exclusion of everybody else.
But that was on his terms.
On his
wasn't
terms.
It?
Everything
You-
was
he
on his
wouldn't
terms.
let any of your family be there.
It's
Nothing.
not that he wouldn't let. He had kind of, again, sold me a story.
Right, okay.
Where he was like, marriage is about two people. It's not about a party and and it was all about money as well. Right? He was like, I don't have the money, so I'm not spending 20 grand on a wedding or 30 or it's now.
I mean, fair. So you get married. You're
got
married.
married, come back, and that's all grand. Anyway, fast forward a year. Did we make it past the year mark? I can't actually remember. It's funny now.
I can't even remember. Did he come back with you, or was he still in Australia?
Oh no, he came back with me.
Yeah.
Came back with me and he was like, do you know what I think we should do? We should move to Australia. And I was like, okay. Like, I love Australia. And I was like, And anyhow, just for the sake of timekeeping, because I know we're short on time, I made gigantic plans in our life to move to Australia, including, orchestrating a redundancy for my job, selling my entire worldly possessions, selling cars, getting rid of apartments, applying for visas. You could only get to Australia on the back of me because I was the only one entitled to a visa.
Of course.
So I applied for jobs, got job offers, put it all in train. And then short story was we were due to go to Australia. We'd had a goodbye party, said goodbye to all our family and friends, packed up all my shit, sold all my other shit. Mm-hmm. And then he was doing a master's again, which I was paying for. And he was like, look, I'm supposed to have my thesis done, but it's not done and I'm going to need a bit more time. And I was like, all right, okay, well, I've left my job now. We have flights to Bali we're supposed to do 5 weeks in Bali before we went to Australia as a kind of a travel. Anyway, he was like, you should go on your own. And I fully think that he thinks to this day, yeah, he kind of did do me a favour because I actually did need that time. But I mean, in his psycho way, he would have, this was his gift to me. But anyhow, he was like, you should go to Bali on your own and then come back. And by the time you come back, I'll be ready to go and la la. So off I went and I had a real eat, pray, love kind of time over in Bali on my own. And, anyhow, I found it very cathartic. But something changed in me when I was in Bali. And I was like, you know what? I am not going to allow this shit to happen anymore.
Did the penny just finally drop?
Yeah, I had this weird experience with this healer or whatever, and I'm
you're not a healer type guy.
No, I'm not woo woo. I run a fucking business based on science, and I went to this healer or whatever, and I had this awful experience, but it was I felt like I had to forgive, and I remember having this very visual thing in my head where I was like, I am now in a clean white dress. And no one is going to dirty my dress. And that was my visual.
It was like a rebirth.
It was a weird thing and I can't explain it. I've no science or ration to explain it. But I was like, I'm coming home in a clean white dress and no one is going to throw shit at my dress.
I love that.
And I was very, very clear about it. And he came home. When I came home, he knew something had changed in me. And I always remember we were driving down to Sea Point to go for a swim one day. And this is a week later or whatever after I came home. And he blew up. This is the kind of mercurial side of it, right? He blew up. He was like, you follow me. We had to take two cars for whatever reason. He's like, you follow me and then we'll go for a swim. And I was following and I saw a parking space and I just parked there. And then I went and met him and he goes why didn't you follow me? And he absolutely blew up. And I was like, what are you talking about? Why didn't I follow you? I saw a parking spot, so I took a parking spot. And he was like, well, and he had a whole thing and it didn't work out the way I wanted. So he blew up. And I was just like, hang on a second. You're not going to tell me how to park my car. You're not going to tell me how to drive. You're not going to tell me how to do anything anymore. It is not happening. It is not happening. I'm not taking it. I'm wearing a pretty white dress and you're not going to shit all over it. He knew something had changed in me. And by the way, 3 days previously, we had a whole family thing where he'd finished his thesis and he presented this beautiful book with and the inscription, it was like, to my beautiful wife, without which none of this could be possible, la la la. And I was really like, tear in my eye, go, finally, it's all been
The
worthwhile.
recognition,
Yeah, and also like the college is over, we're going to Australia, everything, you know, I've been working for is kind of had come to fruition. Anyway, fast forward 3 days later, I was like, you're not going to shit all over my white dress. And the next day I went out to a yoga class and came back, and guess what? For his second trick, everything was gone again.
Oh my
Yeah,
God.
I remember walking in the back door and the bikes were gone. And I was like, oh my God, somebody's robbed the bikes. And we had a load of expensive bikes. And I was like, somebody's robbed the bikes. And then I went in, and I always remember there was a rice cooker, you know, the way like you never use these things. And like there was a ring, a dust ring where the rice cooker was. And I was like, well, like whoever's going to rob the bikes isn't going to rob the rice cooker. So I was like, oh my God,
gone.
that motherfucker, he's gone. He's done it again. And anyhow, next minute the doorbell rings, he arrives at the door and he's like, we need to have a chat. And I was like, literally, I was like, what the hell is going on? And we had a 5-minute conversation down the road, like walk down the road. And he was like, I had an affair when I was in Australia. And I was like, hey, in my head I was like, hey, why is he telling me this a year later?
And I forget that. Like, somehow I thought you caught him, or she messaged.
No,
He actually admitted to the
he
affair.
told me. And then like in my head I was like, why the fuck is he telling me? You know, and he was like, you know, and again, like this like, you know, this is the thing with narcissists, by the way. They're always either the victims, the persecutors, or what's the third thing? I can't even remember now. But anyhow, so he was there and he was like, you know, and I had to tell you, and la 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 la, and you know, and I've taken all my stuff, and you know, I'm going to give you a few days and we'll talk about it in a few days. And I was like, sorry. And just to give you some context, right, I had left my job.
Wow.
My career, which I like spent decades building to get to the point where I was at. Left my job, sold my everything, my house, my car, all my worldly possessions. Had a leaving party. Like, I cannot tell you how little of the pillars that made me were all gone. My mother had died as well within that year. So like, I mean, I just felt like I had been stripped so bare. This is like where good friends come into. I rang Rachel Tracy, who's a good pal of ours, and I was like, Rachel, you know, what the fuck? You know, and I also knew as soon as I told anybody that was it. Because I mean, I was like, and like there was an hour where I sat there on my own going, right, like I need to make a strategic plan here, because as soon as this comes out, there's no going back for it, and then the decision is made for me. And I remember ringing Rachel Tracy, and she was like, well, you've got one thing and one thing only to do. And she was like, you have one opportunity to get the truth out of him. And she was like, you need to go and hunt him down, and you need to sit down, and you need to record, you need to ask, you need to think like a lawyer, not like a wife or a scorned lover or whatever, and you need to find out the truth. So I went and banged down his family house, like screamed down like a fishmonger, like in the street. He wouldn't answer the door to me. Like, I literally no answers.
Did you have a relationship with them throughout?
The family?
I remember,
Yeah, they were lovely actually. I actually felt sorry for them. I think that they got the raw end of the deal and all this, you know.
I mean, well, anyway, you'll probably get to it. They have seen this behaviour in him before, though,
oh yeah,
right?
of course, yeah. But like, I mean, they fell in love with me as I did with them, and like, so there's a big loss to everybody involved. Like, it's not just, and like now the hindsight is, marriage isn't about two people. Marriage is actually about two families and groups of friends, and actually the marrying of two lives together. But anyhow, so I sat down, I got all my answers out of him. Turns out after he had proposed to me and scooched off to Australia, he'd downloaded Tinder. And that's the piece of the jigsaw that actually annoyed me the most for some reason, because it was so deliberate. It wasn't like he, you know,
just
fell in love with Mario and accounts and couldn't control himself. But like, he purposely went out to go in the pool, met some girl and fell in love and had a full relationship with this woman for 6 months, and then married me.
Jeez.
And
Did
then
she know about
continue.
you?
I don't know. Never.
Oh, you never found out?
No, never found out. He alluded that she did, and I was like, well, I mean, what self-respecting woman would have? I don't know. I mean, listen, he's so full of shit, and there's so many lies. God knows what he sold her, what story he sold her.
Wasn't there something about your engagement ring?
Oh yeah, like the whole.
He lied about the value, or he stole, or he owes money for.
Basically, like So, I mean, there's a couple of different stories about this.
Right.
So I still don't entirely know the truth. There's
okay.
layers and layers of con man artistry and behaviour from him. But like there was one story where he had basically, his auntie was a diamond dealer and his auntie had given him the diamond and he'd got the ring made up and he was supposed to pay her and never paid her. There's another story where I'd given him money and he'd used the money to buy the ring. Well, I don't believe that either because he wouldn't have had any money to go to Australia. So I don't really actually know.
Right, okay.
There was a load of kind of things. But like he's just like one of these people who just...
And did he break up then with the girlfriend or was he with her the whole time you were married?
Oh, they were there the whole time we were married and he wanted to go to Australia to be with her.
And take you with him. Like, did he think you were going to have a little menage a trois or something?
I think he needed a visa. So, like,
for God's sake, of course.
Yeah.
So was that it? Was that the
That was
end?
it. That was it. And I had the conversation with him and I was like, and as I left the room, I was like, you will never hear from me ever again. You will never speak to me again. I will never respond to an email, a text, and anything. Don't ever contact me ever again. And I have never spoken to him since.
Well...
Yeah.
Well, actually, you have.
I've heard from him, but I've never responded.
Well, yeah, you've never responded. So you did a similar podcast a year ago, and Dirty John emailed you.
Yeah, it was so funny.
What did he have to say for himself?
So actually, do you know what actually happened? I was at a funeral, right? And this guy comes up to me at a funeral. Like, I mean, it was the most fucking random thing in the world. This guy comes up to me at a funeral and he goes, hey, listen, you don't know me, but my name is whatever. And he goes, and I knew... Dirty John. Me and Dirty John used to play hurling together. And I was like, all right, okay. And he goes, and I heard your podcast. I was like, and he goes, so I sent it around to the whole hurling club and we all heard it. And I was like, all right, okay. And he goes, and I just wanted to say, like, it was a great podcast and la, 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 la. And he goes, and I'm really sorry that happened and la, la, la. Anyhow, I was like, oh my God, like and that podcast grew legs.
Yeah.
And anyhow, fast forward a week or two, I was like, oh, that's, interesting or whatever. And then I got this email from him. And the email is like, it's hilarious. I should have actually brought it out here to like read it. Oh, but it was essentially like, I heard through the grapevine that I may or may not have caused you some harm. And in the, event that I caused you some harm, of which it is denied. Like, he's trying to write it like a lawyer. Like, it's such bullshit.
I read it because you sent it to me. It was...
Like, here is some top tips.
He has not changed.
Not at all.
A narcissist wrote that letter. It was like, if I made you feel that way.
If I made you feel that way,
the fact that you seemed
sorry
mentally unstable.
you felt that way, yeah. And then it was like, here are some top tips on how to recover from the narcissistic abuse that I may or may not have caused you. And then it was like, and before you speak again, remember, and this was a bit threatening. It was really like, remember, is it necessary? Is it kind? And is it true?
And
these are some of my top learnings from my, enlightened experiences when I've been sponging off other women around the world. I was like, fuck off.
I mean, he's literally, I think, isn't he sponging off someone in...
He's
in case.
Yeah, he's gone through another plethora of women. I actually met somebody the other day and he was like, oh, he's like somewhere else. I was like, oh, whatever. I was just like, and even when I was coming in here, I was like, I haven't thought about it in so long. I was like, God, I have to traipse this all up again in my head. But like, to be honest with you, the only reason I'm doing this podcast, obviously you've asked me, but I mean, for me, I feel that this is a story that's actually, the tale is as old as time.
Yeah. And
women, it's you think that people who end up in abusive relationships are, these weak kind of types who have no backbone and no integrity or no self-respect. But that is not the case at all.
No.
And actually, we all have vulnerabilities. Every single one of us has a vulnerability that can be exploited. And also, I mean, the other big learning for me has been, about my own self-worth and my own self-love. And that in itself has been a journey. But, and I've had to do a lot to kind of get to the point where I am, now.
Yeah.
And so for anybody who does listen to this and you feel like you may be in a abusive relationship or a coercive controlling relationship, or your husband or your partner or your father or your mother is a narcissist, you're probably right.
Yeah.
And
don't let people tell you otherwise.
And
I think, I definitely want to do a part 2 because we'll be rushing otherwise. The most important part really is also the rebirth and the rebuild. And people go, but what happens when it's all over? Like, how do you get over it? How do you build? And I don't know, did it happen? Did you feel it happened overnight, or
No.
it was definitely a gradual process?
Actually, no,
like,
it was way quicker than I thought.
Oh,
I
great.
mean, in the, you know, to turn a phrase from my favourite poet, take that, in the twist of separation, I excelled at being free, and I really did. Like I felt free very quickly.
From the moment, like, you were
Yeah.
devastated, but did you feel an instant sense of freedom, like
Yes.
liberation? Like,
Yes.
oh my,
And I remember feeling like a weight had been lifted off me, a decision that I don't think I ever would have had the balls to, like, something would have had to happen to really break.
Yeah.
You know, and obviously it did. But I mean, I think that for me the thing was, like, I never missed him.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and like it's funny because now, like, my husband goes away for 2 days, and I'm like, I miss you. When are you coming home? Annoying him, you know. But like, I never missed him.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know, there was definitely a part of me that was felt free, and also I was in a very fucking unique position. Like, I mean, a lot of people are left in relationships where they're, you know, broken and they're financially dependent on them, or they have kids, or they have mortgages and debts. I had none of that, and I had a pot of cash.
Yeah.
So I mean, I was in a really unique position. But I do remember, and I mean, very quickly afterwards, I moved to Spain, and again, my underwriting and overriding still emotion when I think back on it is shame, is utter shame and embarrassment. I was so humiliated, like absolutely,
Yeah.
and I felt like I'd been had, not once but twice, or like multiple times I'd been financially taken for an absolute ride. I had been emotionally taken for a ride. I had, like, my self-esteem and my everything had taken a beating. My career took a beating, my life plan, my path, and the thing that killed me, and the thing that took me the longest time to get over, was the time. And I had been very vocal with him the whole way through, saying, you know, I really want to have kids, and if this isn't on the agenda for you, just, you know, walk away, don't waste my time. And he was all like, no, when I finish college, you know, I don't want to have kids now and I can't provide for them, and which seems like a completely reasonable thing to say, right? But I mean, he absolutely, like, robbed me of that time, and that I was really angry about that, and really
I can imagine.
hurt about that for
I
a
can
long
imagine.
time.
But in a way, don't you look back now, and I hate the term, it's all a journey, things are meant to happen for a reason.
I'm so fucking
But
grateful.
in a way, so grateful,
Oh,
because
so grateful.
when you had that rebirth, from the outside in as your friend, everything
Yeah.
changed. You were
Everything.
like, I don't want this career. You became a CEO of and co-found a really successful business. Your health, your fitness, your confidence. It was like you. What struck you was, I have a second chance. I have an opportunity.
Well, you know, I had this amazing counsellor, and he was like, he was so integral. And I mean, anybody again who goes through one of these journeys, like, throw all the cash you can at some really good counselling, because it will change your life. And for me, actually, it wasn't about getting through a period. For me, I wanted to learn from. I was like, how did I end up in this relationship?
allowing it, yeah.
How did I end up, and how did I stay in it for that long? And how do I never, ever find myself in that situation again? And it was kind of through that, like, period. And also, I gave myself time. For the first time in my life, I gave myself time to not be a lawyer, to not be a sister, to not be the daughter, to not be there for all these other people, to just be me.
To work out who you were.
And who I was. And through that kind of process, I found myself, you know, unapologetically brazen. Like, I was always brazen, but now I'm unapologetically brazen. And now I'm like, I don't give a shit whether you like me or not. I don't like, care.
Yeah. I love that.
And, you know, and for me, the problem was arriving in these relationships, and these string of bad relationships, is because I was never true to myself. And I was always people pleasing, or trying to win the love or the affection of somebody else, and I had never learned how to be loved. And that sounds like a very strange thing to say, but I always knew how to love people, but I never knew how to be met.
Because when you don't love yourself fully, you don't understand what it's like to be loved.
100%. So it's been like a real
Wow.
journey for me. And then I remember the real turning point was literally about 3 or 4 months later. And I was on the phone to the counsellor guy, and, you know, he said to me, oh, you know, what do you want to talk about in this session? And I was really like, well, I was thinking about this one time, blah, blah, blah. And he said to me, I'm just going to cut you off. And he goes, I'm just wondering how much longer of your life you're going to give to this guy. And I was like, what do you mean? He goes, well, like, how long were you with him? And I was like, oh, like 7 years? I actually can't remember, but 6 or 7 years, whatever. And he goes, well, how much longer are you going to get from? I'm just wondering, is it going to be 6 months? Is it going to be a year? Is this going to define your life? Is this going to be, he's like, some people never get over things like this. So this could define your life, and this could be the next 10 years of your life. And he goes, and that's okay. But I just thought you should ask yourself the question. And I was like,
wow, that's very...
it was literally like the most like, and I was like,
bulb.
he is not getting one more fucking minute of my time.
I love that.
Not one. And I got off that call. I don't think I had any more counselling after that. I was like, that's me done. And then I continued to have the best life
ever. And as we are going to wrap up, but my co-host, who is on maternity leave at the moment, she is a life coach, and she's all about visualization and manifestation. So for her, I just want you to tell this story to the listeners. So Nicky, after all the amazing work she did on herself, she met Clean John, and they are now married and have 2 kids and a wonderful life, stressful, 2 young kids. But can you just very quickly tell the story when you first met Clean John? And this is for you, Mish. The power of visualization.
So I mean, it wasn't when I first met him. It was about a year and a half in, and I decided, I was like, because I had come into it like still cautious and wounded. Anyway, about a year and a half in, I was like, right, okay, I'm ready now, and he is the man for me. And I was like, that's it. I'm ready, and I'm okay with it, and I'm all about the visualization. So, I'm actually so embarrassed telling this. So I did this. I did a mood board, and I decided I was going to put everything that I wanted for the following year on this mood board, including this man. And he's notoriously private. And I was like scouring the internet. He's no Facebook, no Instagram, no anything. Scouring the internet for like a photo of him. And there was one random photo of him at like a work event where he's like standing beside a politician. And I was like, print. Anyway, my friend Leslie, who we've been doing these mood boards for years, was like, yeah, give me that photo. And she was like, took a picture of my head and like superimposed it on top of this like skinny little lollipop politician, right? And then this giant big blonde wig of a head. And so there's the 2 of us like in this photo, and like bang slap in the middle of my mood board was this photo of me and Mr. Right. And anyhow, and by the way, all around it was like pictures of babies and rings and fucking cars and all this like full tilt bully boiler psycho shit. And anyhow, we were like I said, it was a year and a half in, and he came over one day, and we'd had this lovely weekend, and he was on the way to leave, and I was like going to see him later on that day, and he goes, do you mind if I just take this call? Like his mom was ringing, and I said, yeah, grand. And I was like, go on into my office. So he goes into my office, right, and takes the call, and he comes out, and his face was like sheet white, and I was like, is everything okay? And he was like, yeah, I just have to go. I have a bit of an emergency at home. And I was like, oh my God, something happened. And he was like, I have to go. And I was like, okay, God, like, no problem. I'll see you later. Like, anyway, I didn't hear from him for like 2 weeks, right? And then I was like, that absolute prick. Like, how dare he, right?
And how have I done this again?
And I just was like, how dare he? Like, I mean, who the hell does it, like, this new refined me is like, who the hell do you think you are? You don't get to like come over and ride me all weekend and then not call me for 2 weeks. So I like called him, and I was like, sorry, like, is there something wrong with you? And he's like, no, it's grand. Why don't you come over for dinner tonight? So I came over to his house for dinner, and I was like, oh, maybe I've just been a bit like, because obviously like this newfound me, by the way, takes no prisoners, and there's no whatever. So I'm there, and we had this lovely dinner, and I'm lying naked in his bed the next morning, and he goes, so I just have to ask you something. And I was like, yeah, go on, yeah. And I don't know what I was expecting. I don't know, like, do you want to go somewhere or go on a holiday or something? And he was like, so when I was in your office last week, I saw something. And I was like, oh my God. And then I realised that the fucking mood board was in my office, bang slap in the middle, and I totally had forgotten about it. And I was like, oh my God. And I just wanted the ground to open up and die. And you've never seen somebody hightail out of an apartment so quickly, and you're like I was dressed and gone. And like, I think I was on the phone to the girls, like, go, oh my God, what do I do? I'm so.
But it bloody worked.
And he
Everything
was
that was on
like-
that board you have.
Oh, and I always remember I
I mean,
rang.
you're even sweating now. You're like pulling your shirt.
I'm just
You're
like, and I rang Dennis, you know, a good pal of mine, and I was like, Dennis, oh my God. And he was like, well, listen, he goes, if that was me, I would be changing my name by Depot and leaving the country, you absolute psychopath. And he was like, but the good news is that he rang you and saw you again. So that's a deal done.
Yeah.
He's yours.
He's yours.
And I was like,
He's a
really?
keeper.
And he was like, oh yeah, he's like, if there's a comeback from that full tilt psycho behaviour, he's like, yeah, he's in.
It's gonna be you.
He's in.
Well, I just
So
want to
there you
say,
go.
I mean, firstly, I love that story. I've told so many people. And I've
gonna be our
realised as
invites.
you've told it, I was like, I've got words. Like, I actually think instead of a politician, I think I've been telling people it was his ex-girlfriend.
No, it was like a politician. Like some, and like it's real like.
I love it. But thank you for taking the time and sharing the story. Not only because, you know, it's a good, juicy story, but in all seriousness, everything you said earlier about if people are in those relationships, like how important it is to look inward and get out.
And one word of advice: run.
I am so incredibly proud of you as your friend. I'm obviously not glad it happened, but in a way I am glad.
I am.
Because
I am.
It absolutely, the person I see in front of me now loves herself and is happy. Like, life is hard.
It's
of
so
course,
hard though.
but-
Like, I remember somebody saying to me, it might have even been you, I can't remember, but like somebody was saying to me, and lots of people say it to me when I was in the thick of it, like when I was in the thick of like the aftermath of it all, they were like, don't worry, this is going to make you so much stronger than you'd ever knew. And I used to be like,
Fuck off.
do you fucking think I need some prick to ruin my fucking life to show me that I am strong?
Yeah.
I don't fucking need this. Like, this is, you know.
But then you realise you did.
But I did. So,
crazy,
you know,
isn't it?
there you go.
Well, look, let's talk about it more over a glass of wine. We've got wine.
We got wine.
We got wine, and I have no kids.
Woohoo, neither do
Right,
I.
give me a cuddle. Thank you so much. I love you.